Halloween Kills is the second installment in the newest Halloween franchise that is just released this past weekend. I just got out of the theater after seeing it, and we are going to be reviewing the film right now. Guys, welcome back. Orion here. Today, we have a movie review for the newest film in the Halloween franchise, Halloween Kills. I have been waiting for this movie for a while now, and it feels like we have been waiting for this movie for what feels like forever, since the last one came out all the way back in 2018. It's been 3 years now. And it doesn't feel like it's been 3 years, but ultimately, we're here now, the movie's out, and I got a chance to see it yesterday. Ultimately, I know I'm a little late to this. I didn't get a chance to see it opening night, but I was able to see it last night with a couple of friends. And so, what did I think about the movie? Well, here's the best way to describe it. I put it out on my Twitter. For those of you who don't know, go check out my Twitter. It's linked in the description below. I put out a tweet talking about how my reaction was when I came out of the theater. And basically the way to sum it up was that I was entertained, but I was ultimately confused and just a little frustrated by a lot of this movie. And I think the best way to describe the film, if people can understand what I mean by this, is that the movie is an entertainingly confusing mess of a movie from a story perspective that ultimately has good parts and bad parts. This movie is very 50-50 for me. I'm very 50-50 on how I felt about this movie. There's a good part of it that I like, and there's also a good part of it that I was just very frustrated by and very confused about why a lot of the decisions were made throughout the entirety of this film. And it's not even just in one part, it's the entirety of this film that ultimately just very much confused me as to why they did certain things. And ultimately, the biggest problem I had with this movie was, I guess the one word to describe it is motivation. I do not know what the motivation is from the written part of the screenplay of the story of this movie when it comes to character motivation. What is the motivation of any of these characters in this movie? And ultimately, I had no idea when watching every second of this movie. I had no idea what the motivations were. And I think ultimately, that was an outlying factor that just put down this movie in a way where I was always confused. I was always putting my hands in the air like, why? Why is this happening? Why are certain things happening the way they are? And I couldn't understand why so many decisions were made, why certain things went the way they went. And again, this is non-spoilers, so I feel like it's better if I described it in a spoiler-filled way. And so again, guys, I will have a spoiler-filled review out later. Be sure to stay tuned for that, because I will be talking about it more in depth. But ultimately, the best way I can talk about this movie without spoiling is that it just feels like this movie does not know what it wants to be. Now, having said that, aside from that, if I had to come up with any more cons for the film, any more critiques, again, character motivation from a story perspective very much was the biggest issue of this movie. I think a lot of the dialogue in this movie, and when I say a lot of the dialogue, I think about 80% of the dialogue in this movie just felt I think it felt very overly serious, and it also felt very... It just, the execution of a lot of dialogue in this movie is not great, and ultimately, maybe that's just how the actors were directed. I don't think there's inherently any bad actors in the movie, but I just think a lot of the dialogue and the way it was executed was just it just came off weird. It just came off very weird and just like maybe a little bit too serious at times. And of course, the movie has your typical horror cliches. There's a lot of stupidity in this movie. And when I say stupidity, I mean a lot of stupid decisions made by a lot of stupid characters. And that's just the typical horror cliche. You get that in every single horror movie. There isn't a horror movie out there that doesn't have it. So ultimately, I can't really fault the movie for that. But there was so much of it in the film that I was just like, okay, come on now. This is ridiculous. So those were pretty much my only critiques with the film. Now, having said that, everything else about the movie, I was entertained. I was thoroughly entertained by the rest of this film. I loved every single scene when Michael Myers, speaking of the man himself, the main guy of these movies, Michael Myers, I loved every scene with him in it. And I'm going to fully admit it. Every scene that Michael Myers is on screen in this movie, even if he's not in the movie for as long as people actually might think he is, It's not I'm not that's not really a spoiler, by the way. I'm just telling you like how long he may or may not be in the movie. He's entertaining. He goes there too, by the way. Let me just say this again, no spoilers. When people said, I was listening to reviews beforehand about the movie, and when people said that there was a high kill count in this movie from him as far as how many people he kills, they weren't kidding. They literally were not kidding. He kills a lot of people in this movie. And ultimately to the point where I was just like, okay, this is so entertaining that honestly, maybe he should do more. And I almost feel bad saying that because, again, I know it's a movie, so it's not technically real life, but I was just like, I was entertained, man. He was entertaining every scene he was on screen. And I think there's going to be a lot of people out there that ultimately say, well, this is not really his character. He doesn't do this. But if you think about it, who's to say that he wouldn't do that? Again, he's a psychopath. He's a serial killer. He's going to kill people no matter how many there are. And I just think there's a lot of people out there that I've seen already say that he killed too much. But then I think about it, and ultimately, when it comes down to it, I think he killed just the right amount, because if he had killed maybe, let's just say 5 people in the movie, kind of like how he did in the first Halloween film all the way back in 1978, where he only killed 5 people, I think that actually would have brought the movie down even more. So I'm glad they went the route they did with how many people he actually eventually killed, and even in the ways that he did kill them, because he does his usual thing in this movie where he gets creative with the kills and how he puts the bodies and stuff like in certain positions. That's his usual thing. So ultimately, he was entertaining. But actually, you know what? Now I think about it, there is another critique I have of the film, and that's for the main character, the main good character, Laurie Strode, played by Jamie Lee Curtis. Again, this is not a spoiler, what I'm about to say, but it should be an expectation for a lot of people going into the movie. She's barely in it. She's barely in the movie. And I feel like I have to say that. She is barely in this movie. I want to say she's in this movie for not even 10 minutes. I'm genuinely being serious. I don't even think she's in this movie for more than 10 to 15 minutes. And I think that was another detriment to the film. I just do not know why this character, your main good character, is not in the film for more than at least 10 to 15 minutes. It makes no sense to me why they went down that route. Even if she was great in every scene she was in, I don't understand why you didn't use her more. She carries these movies. I mean, she's one of the factors that carries these movies, other than, Michael Myers doing his usual thing. She carries the movies. She was great in the first one. I don't know why they went down the route of not using her more. And again, I understand that she's in a different situation in this movie than what she was in the first. She doesn't have a knife in her stomach like she did at the end of the first movie 3 years ago. So I understand what they were trying to do, but ultimately I felt like, God, I feel like they should have used her more in some way other than her just doing whatever she did in the movie, which was pretty much just talk. I think the only thing that she does in the movie is just talk. Yeah, and of course then there's an underlying social commentary message sprinkled throughout the film. I feel that I kind of understand where they were going with it, but ultimately it just didn't work, and I almost feel like it wasn't needed. But again, and I'll talk about it in spoilers, but again, I think the movie accomplishes its mission of making the film entertaining, making it tense, because it is a tense movie. The movie is very tense. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that it isn't. It's a tense movie. And every film, I could feel my theater just quiet and just waiting for something to happen, and it would always pay off. So I think the movie does its job from that perspective. So I think had this movie not been entertaining, I think this would have been one of the worst movies I've seen all year, but thankfully, it saved it in that way to where ultimately, if I had to come down with a verdict, and this is how I will end the review, if I had to come up with a verdict for this film, I am giving it a generous 5.5 out of 10. This movie, again, I feel the entertainment that it brought ultimately saved it. But had there not been that much entertainment, I think the movie would have gone right below a 5, and it would not have been a good score for me. But I think the entertainment does help generate it, and I'm giving it an extra 0.5. I could have gone a 5 out of 10 if I wanted to, but ultimately I'm giving it the extra 0.5 just to ultimately just say that, there is entertainment to it, and I'm glad that they kept that going. So from the first movie, of course. So guys, I can't really say anything more other than just stay tuned for the spoiler review later. I will get that out to you guys later. Have you guys seen the movie? I want to know what you guys think down below. Comment down below. What did you think about the movie? No spoilers, of course. Did you like it? Did you not like it? I want to hear what you guys have to say down below in the comment section. Of course, if you're new, if you like this video, please hit that like and subscribe. Turn on that notification bell. I would greatly appreciate it. And I will see you guys all in the spoiler-filled review. Peace out, everybody.